Good day and welcome to Gold Inside Russia. My name is Rhod Mackenzie and here we talk about what's going on in the gold and precious metals sector in Russia, which as most of you know is the second largest gold producer in the world. Now today I want to talk about how Russians are now saving not in dollars but in gold. Since the Russian government abolished VAT on gold purchases, it's become a new way of savings for Russia. Last year, 2024, saw the highest volume of purchases of gold bars, coins and jewellery in over a decade, and Russia became one of the top 5 gold-loving countries. So why is the demand for this type of investment soared? And what happened to the love of dollars and euros and deposits and investing in real estate? Well, in 2024, the highest volume of gold purchases since 2013 was recorded at 75.6 tons in the form of jewellery, coins and bars, according to analysis from the Russian central bank. Now, as a result, Russia entered the top 5 companies in terms of gold investment. Now, at the same time, gold prices, as you know, have been rising and they're continuing to set records, although they have declined slightly recently, but they're still well over $300,330 per ounce this week. Now, economists at Citibank Research have raised their gold price forecast for the next 3 months from $3,350 to $3,600 an ounce. Now, the reasons for this is the escalation of the trade wars and tariffs between the US, China and other areas. Now, while they did reach an agreement with Canada and Mexico to remove the tariffs, that's not been possible with Beijing. So let's see what Beijing does in the countermeasures against the US sectors. But, I mean, that doesn't really affect Russia because it's not affected by it at all. But it does affect the gold price. And it turns out that Russians have chosen a good strategy for investing in gold. I mean, they've been buying more gold since I said 2022. When the policy of the state was to abolish the VAT on gold bullion and waive the personal income tax for 2 years, and that helped obviously. Now the policy of fiscal incentives worked, and I think the figure of 75.6 tons is actually inaccurate, because it's impossible to calculate the secondary market for gold coins. Now, only from March the 1st this year was gold coins be taken into account in the precious metals turnover accounting system, which is GISDM DK. I mean, bars are already included and jewellery's been deferred. So, personally, I therefore believe that the figure of 100 tons is actually a more accurate assessment of the purchase of gold bars, coins and jewellery by Russians last year. Now, to put that into perspective, in the 2010s, Russians only bought 3 to 4 tons of gold a year, according to Alexei Vazovsky, who's vice president of Zolota Plata. Now, the analyst explains that the state has introduced tax breaks to prevent the outflow of funds from banks. Now, usually at the beginning of a major crisis in Russia, people run to the banks to withdraw their deposit and then invest these rubles into dollars and euros, and that causes problems for the banking system. Now, however, the conflict with the West and the shortage of and the ability to be able to buy euros and dollars has mounted this counteract the phenomenon, which has happened quite frequently in Russia. I mean, we've seen it in the 90s several times, and obviously in 2008. So they've reduced the outflow of capital, and it didn't really affect the banking system, but actually supported it, because the banks are actively involved in gold transactions. Plus, personal metal accounts are now recorded in settling records. Now, the country's budget also benefits from the increased demand for gold. I mean, you got to remember, gold is mined in Russia, so it doesn't depend on imports. And last year, 328 tons were mined. And some of that gold is now being consumed in Russia. Now, this is a great story for Russia because the state also earns extra money because taxes are paid all the way along the value chain. The mining industry pays taxes, the refineries pay tax, the banks and the population all pay taxes. So personal income tax was only abolished for 2 years, and now you have to pay for it tax if you sell a bar that you've owned for less than 3 years. and that's according to the president of Zolotio Palata. Now, in addition to investing in dollars and euros, there was another common tool for preserving savings and making a profit. That was investing in real estate. However, what made gold the big winner compared to property is because the entire threshold is much, much lower. I mean, according to an analyst, Moscow pensioners go to the coin dealers. I mean, a 3-gram gold coin, St. George the Victorious, is about 30,000 rubles, which is about $300 or $340. And to buy an apartment, you need to have at least 8 million rubles. Secondly, gold recently has had a higher return. I mean, if you look at the analysis of the dynamics of 10 years from 2014 to 2024, in Moscow, the average price of a square metre of property has gone from 200 to 270,000 rubles over the 10 years. But gold has gone up by 650% in that 10 years, according to Vazisovsky. And no point talking about the stock market, because that's not about income, it's about how not to lose your capital. Now, there's also cryptocurrency, which was legalized in Russia last year. And it's also become quite popular among some as a protective asset. I mean, you can now legally mine and own cryptocurrency, but it's very difficult to pay for goods and services with it. And if you take Bitcoin out of the equation, which has at times grown more than gold, then most of the other currencies of cryptocurrencies are fraudulent stories. Now, remember how Trump coin was inflated to high values and immediately collapsed, and people in America lost millions on these Trump coins. I mean, for investors, particularly older people, investing in crypto is uncomfortable and unsafe in the terms of fraud, according to Vazisovsky. And I tend to agree with him. I mean, last year, Russians massively transferred money into deposits because the volume went up by 1.5 times. And that's because the return on the bank deposits rose sharply, and they were getting 20 to 23% against the background of central banks' interest rate hikes. So the return on bank deposits is incomparable with the return on gold in 2024. Gold and ruble went up by 44% and in dollar terms by 30%. Now, at the same time, new historical records for gold, both in dollars and rubles, is going to happen in 2025. I'm certain of that. Now, that's not an investment advice, it's a fact. Now, back in the summer, it was predicted that gold back last summer, would hit $3,000 an ounce. Well, we've already surpassed that level by far. Plus, in rubles, gold will go up to around 10,000 per gram. Now, Trump's trade war with China, which he responded by raising tariffs on American energy resource, and tariffs at the end of the day are inflation. And when inflation is high, gold becomes higher. It's more expensive. And the statistics over the last 50 years prove that. 8 years when inflation was above 5%, and for the US that's quite high, because their average inflation is normally 2 to 3%, except recently under Biden it went up to 15 to 30, although they officially said it was 8. Now, in each of those years, gold rose by an average of 14.5%, so the statistics clearly show when the inflation flywheel is turning, gold becomes more expensive. That said, the leading analyst at A Markets, Igor Rastogurev, doesn't share the optimism. He said last year the price of gold rose from $2,000 to over $3,500, but there's no guarantee of a steady growth. But given the forecasts, a further rise could happen. And forecasts indicate the market volume may grow to 250,000 rubles. For coins and bars. If investments are diversified, gold can only generate income in case of price growth. But also, it hedges the risk of the ruble weakening, as the gold is traded in US dollars. So judging by the continued demand for gold from a number of central banks, the potential for price increases remains high, and it's unlikely that the prices will go as massively up as they did in 2024. But there's certainly likely to be growth that takes place. Anyway, that's my episode today of Gold Inside Russia. Please like, share and subscribe, and set the alert button to inform you when I post a new video. Welcome to the channel, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.